Mr. Thachi. And I now open the floor to the members of the Security Council. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, we would like to thank our colleagues from Côte d'Ivoire for their position of principle and for convening an emergency meeting of the Council at the demand of Serbia and Russia in connection with a blatant violation of Security Council Resolution 1244 as a result of the adoption by the Pristina Assembly of a package of laws on the transformation of the Kosovo security forces into a fully fledged armed forces. We are grateful to Undersecretary General of the UN on Peacekeeping, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, for his briefing and assessments. We also listened to Mr. Hashima Tachi's statement very carefully. We welcome the presence of the President of Serbia, His Excellency Aleksandar Vučić, at this meeting, and we share, distinguished Mr. President, the serious concern that you expressed on the situation in Kosovo. Now, we concern about the situation and the lawlessness around the decision of the establishment of the so-called Kosovo Armed Forces. Not only around the decision per se, but the lawlessness in the assessment and evaluation of this decision, which we've already seen in the quoted statement of the EU8. And I think we will hear more than once at this meeting to follow. We will hear this from those for whom international law no longer exists. Now they act on the basis of a rules-based order, on the basis of an order to which they adapt any illegitimate decisions in accordance with their political considerations. Today, we will hear very carefully about why Resolution 1244 has no connection to the so-called quote-unquote sovereign decision of the parliament of the so-called sovereign state. Now, over the past few years, we have often warned that the problems in Kosovo, unfortunately, are not being resolved, but rather they're accumulating. We've constantly pointed out that the situation in the region is very unstable and at any moment could spin out of control. We have demanded an attentive international monitoring by the Security Council. Our appeals have been disregarded, and Pristina has often been covered. Its position has been protected and covered, and as a result, the situation has become explosive. The defiance of Pristina, its refusal over the course of 5 years to implement the key agreement with Belgrade on the creation of the community of Serb municipalities of Kosovo, has compounded other gross violations. The decision on transforming the Kosovo security forces into the Kosovo Defense Forces has become a gross violation of Security Council 1244 resolution, which, as the Secretary General underscored, remains a fundamental legal basis for the Kosovo peace settlement. The resolution contains an absolutely clear demand on the demilitarization of any armed groups of Kosovo Albanians and authorizes the presence on the territory of Kosovo exclusively of a multinational contingent under international control. There's a lack of progress in the region on creating conditions for a political settlement. The EU mediation mission has practically produced no results. We've seen an increase in illegal incidents and raids accompanied with violence by Kosovo special forces against the Serb-populated north of the region. There's an acute issue of ensuring protection of the Orthodox shrines in Kosovo. There's a continuing usurpation by the Kosovo authorities of the property of the Serbian Orthodox Church. The region continues to be a fertile ground for recruiting of radicals. terrorist returnees from Syria and Iraq take refuge there. Also, the rate of return of refugees and IDPs to the region remains highly unsatisfactory. There's a real threat of humanitarian crisis due to the introduction by Pristina of protective tariffs on the import of goods from Serbia. Against this backdrop, the emergence of the armed forces of Kosovo represents a threat to peace and security in the region, which could lead to a repeat of the armed conflict. The undermining of Resolution 1244 is taking place not only with the direct neglect, but with the knowledge and with the support of leading Western countries, including in the framework of the international security presence that is the KFOR, which is located in the region based on Resolution 1244. We have to note that the KFOR is very selective in implementing its mandate. Just recently, in the Serb-populated northern regions of the country, on the pretext of ensuring security, large-scale exercises of KFOR were carried out with the participation of dozens of armored vehicles. Now, on the ground, this appeared as another episode aimed at intimidating Kosovar Serbs. Meanwhile, in Albanian regions, such exercises have never been held, even in cases of blatant provocation and violence. For example, when the Albanian radicals cut off on the 7th and 8th of September a road using barricades so as not to allow the president of Serbia, Mr. Vučić, to visit the Serbs in one of the towns of the region. Such open violation of the freedom of movement, especially against the highest dignitary, was not met with an appropriate reaction by KFOR. Now, in the framework of KFOR, KFOR has been systematically training the Albanian personnel of the KSF for a long time. This goes outside the scope of the mandate of KFOR. The idea is not to deal with tasks of relief or civil defense, but rather train specialized units. This is done on the site of Bondstil, which was set up in violation of Resolution 1244. It was set up in line with the implementation of Resolution 1244 for peacekeeping. The functioning of this basis totally lacks transparency. We demand a comprehensive and full accountability of KFOR vis-a-vis the Security Council, both on the use of Bondstil and on the deployed personnel there and the material and technical resources available there. We've been very disappointed about the position of the European Union. On the one hand, it claims to play the role of an objective mediator. On the other hand, it disregards the illegal creation of the Kosovo army. The reaction of the EU to the latest decision of Pristina can only be called as toothless. This irresponsible and two-faced policy has crossed a dangerous threshold. The emergence of the so-called Kosovo army represents an existential threat for Serbs, and it's clear why. It's enough to say that in the ranks of the KSF, there are quite a lot of former fighters of the so-called Kosovo Liberation Army, which was responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity during the conflict. The victims of these crimes were Serbs, representatives of national minorities, and dissident Albanians. Individuals who committed crimes, including abduction of people and removal of their organs in order to sell them on the black market, continue to hide from punishment. Now, we keep hearing promises year after year that the special tribunal on the crimes of the KLA will supposedly ensure that justice prevails, while such promises are harder and harder to take seriously. Now, the most serious concern is about the possibility of incursions of armed Kosovo Albanian units into the northern Serb-populated regions of Kosovo in order to establish control by force of Pristina over the whole territory. Now, triggering such a scenario could lead to bloodshed and become a real catastrophe. It will return the Balkans to the period of turmoil and bury efforts to stabilize the region, efforts undertaken by the international community over the past few decades. Unfortunately, there is we're not sure that of the ability or the readiness of the international presence in the region to prevent such a blitzkrieg scenario. We note that the attitude of the authorities of Serbia is marked by responsibility and restraint. They have made appeals to the Kosovar Serbs to remain calm and not to react to provocations, as well as they're seeking to ease tensions only through diplomatic means. At the same time, we also believe that it is essential to take very seriously the message of the leadership of Serbia about the fact that in case of an incursion by Kosovo Albanian forces to the north of the region or attempts to conduct pogroms against Serbs in other parts of Kosovo, Belgrade will protect them. We believe that the main responsibility for ensuring the protection of Serbs is on the shoulders of the international security presence in Kosovo. Furthermore, in accordance with paragraph 9b of Resolution 1244, KFOR are duty-bound to take comprehensive and immediate measures for demilitarization and disbanding of any armed Kosovo Albanian units. As far as the decision to create the Armed Forces of Kosovo, which violates the resolution, it must be reversed immediately. We expect that the UN mission in Kosovo, UNMIK, in the framework of its mandate, will continue to play an active role in ensuring conditions for a peaceful and normal life of all inhabitants of the region, in protecting and promoting human rights, and contributing to the political process. We also hope that the European Union will also use its resources, including its presence in Kosovo and the stabilization and association agreement with Pristina, to prevent future deterioration of the situation, and will contribute to revoking the trade tariffs, the decisions on trade tariffs and the armed forces that were recently taken by Pristina. In conclusion, it's important to point out how counterproductive attempts by the supporters of Pristina are to cover up the worsening situation in Kosovo from the eyes of the international community, and to prevent the regular consideration of the Kosovo item by the Security Council. This kind of policy has become one of the reasons why for the current crisis situation in the region, because it spawned a feeling of that anything is permitted and a sense of impunity among the Kosovo authorities. The situation in Kosovo must remain at the center of the attention of the Council. The quarterly timetable for the consideration of reports of the Secretary General of the work of UNMIK must be strictly adhered to. We cannot exclude that in case of an escalation or negative trends, it might be necessary to convene new emergency meetings of the Security Council. I hope not, obviously. Now, I would like to draw attention of the Secretariat of the UN to the need to very carefully monitor the situation and to report to the Security Council. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement.